network engineer. I don't know the difference, so he works with computers. Rob actually has, he's really great. He's been really involved in the secular community. At least that's what I gleaned from it when I jumped in. It's been a year for me. So we are really excited to have him share his story today. I'm going to start asking you guys who are doing commitments some interesting questions. Now, not everyone got back to me. So one of the questions I have is like, what's your favorite restaurant? I do remember he said he likes Italian food. Johnny Castone's or Garazzo's, right? I can concur with that. And your favorite book was 1984, right? By George Orwell. So let's just give a really great warm welcome to Rob Myers.
Thanks, Ellen. I just want to start by saying thank you for inviting me out here to speak today. I want to start, I'm going to talk about my journey in life and my experiences growing up. I want to talk first, though, that I feel great this morning. It's good to see a lot of my friends here. I've met a lot of you exclusively in the secular community, and I've talked to a few people even just this morning who are either here for the first time or are new to the movement. And I just want to say that for those of you that are new to this, I was where you are not too very long ago, and getting involved with the secular community in Kansas City has been one of the greatest things that I've ever done, and I've made a lot of really good friends, and I know so many people here, and so many of you I call my close friends. So just be aware that if you stick with us, we can be a really good group of people. So I took some notes, so I'm going to refer to them on my phone from time to time, but I want to start by saying I've never been to a church service in my entire life. I was raised non-religious. I don't know that I would use the word atheistic, but I suppose that would be accurate. I've never been to a church service before, so something like this is sort of new to me anyway, but I'm really happy to be here. My parents were once religious, and they left the church independently of one another before they met when they were in college. So, and I have a pretty small family, and none of them are particularly religious people. So I have something of a unique experience. I know that a number of you have come from religious backgrounds, or maybe some of you even still are religious, and so we're all a little bit different in different ways and different backgrounds. But I'm going to talk a little bit about my experiences growing up. When I was very young, when I was in my first social experiences in life, like in school and daycares and so forth, my friends, that I had at the time would talk about going to church on Sundays and having to do various ritualistic things like eating certain foods or avoiding certain foods or having certain topics be sort of off limits. And to me, that was just kind of interesting. It was just sort of a thing. I didn't take it particularly seriously. And to be honest, and this was sort of the interesting thing looking back, is they didn't take it seriously either, at least not at the time. And, there was this sense that church was something that your parents made you do, and that you just sort of did it because it's like being asked to clean up your room or do the dishes or something like that. It was just something that you got asked to do, and you didn't want to really be there, and maybe you didn't even really believe the stuff in the first place, but you don't even know what belief really means at that point. So it wasn't a big deal, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Is people would ask me, do you go to church, or what church do you go to? And I just don't go. I mean, I don't go. It's not part of my life. And they didn't have anything. There was no problem with that. I mean, it was, if anything, I would say they were jealous that I didn't have to deal with that. As I got older, though, things kind of changed, and as they do. I mean, well, I'll get to that in just a minute here. But one of the more memorable sort of moments from my sort of late child years is a lot of you probably at some point had what you might call the talk with your parents, right? And like for most people, the talk is usually about sex. Well, with me, it wasn't. With my sister and I, anyway. I have a sister, and she's in the same story that I have, basically. The talk that my parents had with us, and I would say that we were probably 12 or 13 when this happened, was about religion. And what my mom had done was she put together she wrote a long, I guess you could say a letter to us, explaining, like, here are the different religions of the world and what they believe, and that sort of, and it was very just sort of basic and informative stuff. And I didn't really think about it or really realize it at the time, but I guess what they were sort of saying, my folks were like letting me know that if I wanted to be religious or go to church or affiliate with myself with something, that I was free to do that. But I was just thinking to myself, and I know my sister had the same thought, well, I don't feel like I'm really missing out on anything, but this was very interesting. So the talk that they had with me was just about, do you want to believe? Do you want to, do you feel like you're missing out on anything? And I just didn't. I mean, I didn't, think much about it, because at that point in my life, I still was very much, of the same opinion that, people didn't take it particularly seriously. So things like holiday traditions and so forth were just, interestingly enough, my family has always celebrated Easter and Christmas and stuff like that, and they were just sort of excuses to get the family together and have dinner and just sort of meet. But that was what these holidays were to me, so they didn't have any particularly religious meaning. As I got a little bit older, though, things did start to change, and there was a particularly memorable experience that I had during high school. I was a senior. I believe it was my senior year in high school, and I was in an English literature class, and we were reading Canterbury Tales, which, if any of you have read, it has its raunchier moments, for sure. And it's a book that all 17-year-olds should read, I think, or a collection of stories. And we were having a very interesting discussion in class one day about maybe some of the more blasphemous aspects of those stories, or maybe the more sexual aspects, or maybe a little bit of both, I don't remember. And I thought it was a very interesting discussion, and my teacher at the time was this sort of dirty old woman who just loved talking about this stuff, and we all got along with her really well, and it was great. I mean, everybody felt this really good vibe, and I was just having a good time, and out of nowhere, this guy in my class, his name was Dave, and I have no idea what became of him. I haven't ever seen or heard of him in years. Not you, David. Gets just righteously offended and starts pounding his fist on his desk and saying, this is the most ungodly conversation, or I don't know what his exact words were, but he was just furious, saying, I am offended as a Southern Baptist. I am absolutely offended at this conversation, and I cannot believe what you guys are saying. And I just want you to know that at this point in my life, I had never, ever experienced anything like that. I never. That was the moment, that very day, when the light went off in my head, and I realized, wow, people actually believe this stuff. And they really mean it, and I just couldn't. I felt almost like I had woken up, in a sense, that I had lost some innocence, because here was this guy just legitimately angry. Well, to him it was legitimate about an English literature that had been written 500 years ago, and I'm sure it was very controversial at its time. But that sort of changed my opinion on things, and of course, not long after that. I went to college and I met other people that were like that, or maybe they were there all the time and I just never realized it. So after I graduated from college and entered the workforce in my 20s, I tended to gravitate towards people that were kind of like me. I don't know that any of us would have ever really used the word atheist or atheism or agnostic, or I know that I used to identify as a deist. I think any of us here that are non-believers probably went through that phase too. So eventually, though, I found this. It was in 2007. I found the secular community through meetup.com. I joined a group, and as luck would have it, it was just immediately before the Humanist Day picnic, which I forget when. I think that's on the solstice in like June. I think that's when they do it. There was a group here in town that was doing a big humanist picnic, and I joined that. And I have to say that that was a very transformative experience for me too. That was in 2007. And meeting people that I could just openly talk to about my just lack of belief, or maybe my questions about, religion and belief and about dogmatic type stuff. Just being able to be around people and not have to avoid these topics, like talk about, well, why do people believe these things, and what's the meaning of all of this. It was very interesting to me, and that's why I mentioned, that some of you that are new to this, you may feel the same way, and I just want you to know that that's a very rewarding thing, to be around people that you don't have to censor yourself around, and that you don't have to, that you can just be yourself and kind of, maybe even make a joke or two from time to time about some sort of silly tradition or something like that. But, it's been, 6 years now, and eventually I found my way here. And so this is really, in a very real sense, this is the third meeting, if I'm not mistaken, of Oasis. And in a very real sense, this is really the first time I've ever been to church. But I'm so glad to have found it. I could name probably half the audience here of people that I either know or consider friends, or both. And I just want you guys to know that as somebody that has a purely secular background, I can't always relate to some of the struggles that you've had, but I can tell you that if you're, some of you I know are newly parents, or going to be, or planning on it, don't be afraid to raise your kids secular, because it's okay. I mean, it's not something that, I think it just requires a considered approach. And so my parents and I, we used to talk about religion a little bit, but never, it was never a big deal for me. I don't know if things are different now, but I get the impression they kind of are. So I'm kind of rambling at this point, so I guess I'll wrap it up. I just want to say thanks for having me out today, and I look forward to having more conversations and meeting you guys, and we have some really amazing and delicious food. I made some brownies I hope that you'll enjoy. So I think we have our sweets outnumbering our legitimate stuff there. I shouldn't say legitimate, but our non-sweets. But anyway, that's really all that I have. Do we do a Q&A, or just wrap it up? Or
you'll be here for this.
Yeah, so please come by and say hello. I want to meet more of you, and I think everybody here is really great, and thanks again, Helen.